So I'm here tonight at the Hamburg Film Festival, and with me today is Jason Sanchez, who is one of the directors of A Worthy Companion. So you and your brother Carlos, you are photographers in the first place, and you just wrote and directed your first feature film, A Worthy Companion. And I've taken a look at your photographic work, and it's very cinematic. So is it? Have you always wanted to do a film, or is it just a logical consequence?
I think we've always been interested in the medium, but for us it was always about finding the right story, because of how much time it takes to make it, and we wanted to write it, so we knew that we needed to find something that we really fell in love with. Photo work, which what we did for about a decade, required less of an engagement per idea, so that kind of formed our background and our chops. Yeah, film was always on the horizon, and it just took a little while to get going, but we're happy to be here now.
Is there any difference for you between movie making and photography?
For one thing, we were not doing everything ourselves, which was nice. In photo, we built all the sets, we did the lighting, we did the costumes, we did everything ourselves. So that really gave us a good learning experience as to what all the departments did. Certainly writing was very different, but I mean, at the end of the day, it was a very fluid, natural transition. There weren't many tough learning curves. I mean, we've directed commercials for TV beforehand, so I think that gave us some on-set experience. But as far as the transition from one medium to the other, it felt very good. So.
How long have you thought about doing a film before it actually happened?
I think we began writing nearly 5 or 6 years ago, and the film we began writing had a male at the lead. It was a very different story. We were inspired or interested in these kidnapping and long-term imprisonment stories that we heard about coming out of Austria and things like that, and really what we were interested in was the idea of that invisible leash that is created between the victim and the aggressor. So we were really interested, when these kids or these children get a chance to escape, or these teenagers get a chance to escape, you hear their story and you hear that during their captivity they had chances to either pick up a phone or run away, and they didn't take them and they went back towards the aggressor. So initially we began writing a story on that type of idea, trying to answer that question: how is that formed and how is that broken? But as time went on, each year we continued writing. It seemed that a new film in the festivals came out on that type of topic.
I think you're talking about Room?
Room was like the last one. That was like the nail in the coffin, but there was a few beforehand. And we were financed and casting for the male lead, and we were having trouble getting who we wanted, and we just thought outside the box. And what if the lead was a female? What would that mean to the story? Keeping the nucleus alive that we wanted. And so then within a year we rewrote an entire new film, which is the one you saw. But it started, when we began the project, it began very differently.
And was there a special occasion or a special event which made you come up with this story in the first place?
I think it was just it was those stories. The Natasha Kampusch story came out, and then there's the Joseph Fritzl story came out, which was very different, but it still stimulated that idea, and it got us interested into studying these cases of abduction and long-term imprisonment, and the psychological bond that forms between the aggressor and the victim. So it was just like a natural progression between those events that kind of brought the story to our eyes that we were interested in exploring.
And you said in another interview that you don't like looking at or creating art if it doesn't have an edge.
Sure.
I pretty much like that idea, and I think that's exactly what I thought when watching the film. It was edgy and was just not like all the other films we get to see. So how did you achieve that?
I think it's just the subject matter. I think the story lends to that, polarizing effect on viewers. It makes you question your morals. It makes you question right and wrong. It shows you that there's gray zones within everything, you know, and it shows you that the abuser is at once the abused, and it shows the cycle of that. So I think by virtue of the nature of the story, it is one that's edgier and more difficult to watch. So I think because of difficulty, and because we're showing it in a very non-judgmental way, and we're just putting everything out there, that it does have that effect where it kind of stirs and gets under people's skin. But that's not the intention. The intention was to study, you know, these characters and their relationships and things like that. But it's kind of how it goes.
Evan Rachel Wood is as powerful as always. I love her performance in every single movie. But what Julia Sarah Stone does with just her impression is quite extraordinary. How did you find her?
Julia, we scouted all of Canada basically to find the right Eva, and Julia's performance, you know, rose above and beyond everybody. We did an initial chemistry test between the two of them, where Evan lives in Nashville, before shooting, during prep, and it was just clear that, you know, the two of them, you know, both of them alone are fantastic, but it was clear that once we put both of them together, it was a perfect fit. Julia, that's the strength of Julia, is that although there's not a lot of dialogue for her part, she just exudes emotion, you know, in the most subtle ways. Her performance is very powerful.
Absolutely. How did you get that performance out of her?
They brought it, you know. She's very extremely talented, extremely sensitive, extremely dedicated. She's very quiet, but she internalizes a lot, you know, and she's very, very prepared, extremely prepared on set. I think the way we wrote the script was very descriptive. It was a script that had a lot of details, and I think that was very useful to both of them to kind of help get into the characters. I mean, we had initial conversations and things like that, little rehearsals and stuff like that, but she really, you know, studied the script and understood the character fundamentally. There wasn't a lot of, you know, pampering on our end of trying to pull things out of them. They just really brought it.
And how much was actually in the script? Was there space to improvise?
There was space to improvise. You know, a lot of the script is there, but, you know, for instance, we rewrote the ending.
Oh.
The ending sequence at the father's house was rewritten during shooting because the way in which Evan was portraying her character was so powerful, and her sadness and her pain so tangible and real, that the initial closure to the story we had wasn't really didn't really offer enough of an arc for her character. So I think 2 days before we were set to shoot that last scene, we had, you know, we knew for a while that we needed to rewrite it, but it only kind of came 2 days before, and it offered us a way to kind of give her character a bit of an arc, add a tinge of hope to the possibility that she can pull herself out of this cycle that she's stuck in, you know. So there was improvising on set, but there's also, you know, us being on our toes, adjusting the script as necessary, which was extremely stressful, but I think it worked out.
Yeah, definitely worked out so well. When talking to other directors, I learned that especially character-driven films are very hard to get funded. Do you share that impression, or is it even harder if you're a first-time director?
I don't know. It's because it's our first film, so I don't have much experience in that world, but I know that you know, we're based in Quebec, so making an English language film in Quebec, which is primarily French, was already a bit more difficult. But we had great producers behind us who have a great track record, and distributors, so that kind of helped it come together. But you know, nothing comes easy. Nothing good comes easy, so you got to work hard at it.
Yeah. I'd like to get back to the story. The story is focused on the character of Evan Rachel Wood, Laura. And have you at some point in the development thought about telling it from Julia's point of view, or what was your reason to choose Laura's point of view?
I think Laura was the driving force because, you know, she said it well. We premiered in TIFF, and she said this amazing thing where she's Eva, but she just didn't get out. You know, she's the Eva of the story also, but she just didn't get a chance to get out. So it was interesting because her character in the story allowed us to track this victim who's also the abuser, who we kind of come to understand later on what happened, what's driving her to do these terrible, destructive things, and we were just interested in telling a story from the point of view of this abuser, but who's also the abused. You know, like not having just a film about the victim, but also about the aggressor, because it's less common to see a film about the predator and the abuser than it is about the victim. But you know, we tried to balance it out with, you know, Julie and her father, Dennis O'Hare's role. But we were more interested in focusing on her and trying to show the cycle of her life and of her story. You know?
Yeah. As I said, I'm very impressed by your first film. I can't wait to see the next one. Is there anything you can already talk about?
For the next one?
Yeah.
We have a project that's in very early stages of development. That's based on a story that happened in Vancouver, in Canada, that we've been researching, and it's about this family who spent this last weekend with their mother, who has early onset dementia, who decides to take her own life. So it's this idea that she's set a date, she's going to do it. She's in her early 80s, as is set now, and she's invited her family to spend one final weekend together. So the idea is to portray that last weekend with the family, but that's very early.
But that sounds very interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Hope to bring it back here.
Yeah. We always have a special about Canadian films, especially from Quebec. So
I'd love to come back.
Yeah, we love to have you back here.
Fantastic.
So thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you so much.
Good luck with the film.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Fantastic.